$2 a pound in the mountains. Lead, 7 cents a pound St. Louis, $2 a pound in the mountains. Everything costs $2 a pound. But nonetheless, it was a good life. And I seen most of this great country before anybody else. We went trapping from the Wind River country up by the Yellowstone. We went from the Yellowstone to the Wind River country down to, well, the Great Salt Lake and beyond. It was in 1825 that Jim Bridger, a good friend of mine, he went down and seen the Great Salt Lake. And he came back up and reported there was an arm of the Pacific just south of Bear River. And it sounded right to us because the Spaniards had talked to the Spaniards at a time, walked into the Great Basin and went, okay, and left. Had no interest in it. But they spoke to the Indians, and the Indians told them there was a great bay of salt there. And the Spaniards figured the same thing. It was an arm of the Pacific Ocean. It was said that a man could dip a canoe in the Great Salt Lake Point out of the west and paddle all the way to the Bay of San Francisco. And we found out before long that wasn't the case, but I did take that trip, but not in no canoe soon by and by. Now, I was in the mountains for 25 years, but after a while, beaver didn't shine no more. Beaver went down $4 a pound from 6, and then went down to 5, and went down to 4 and 3, and finally $2 a pound. That's $3 a plume prime. I ain't talking kittens and summer and late spring furs and summer furs, but prime beaver. And the prices of the goods didn't go down. We were still paying premium prices, 2,000% profit on goods. And Jim Bridger told me why. He said that the style, the fashion, had switched from beaver hats to silk. Do you know where silk comes from? Jim Bridger told me. Worms! It come from worms. And so I asked Jim, oh, Jimbo, what are we going to do now? And Jim says, well, we could go to St. Louis and buy some teeny tiny little traps. Well, I ain't gonna trap worms. It ain't dignified. What's next? Skinning tarantulas to make hairy breeches for women? Yeah, fashion, it's a crazy world, I'll tell you. Well, Jim Bridger started himself a trading post for a while, but I decided to go farming, me and my wife, back Chica. She was a crow squaw, but finest woman God ever made. We had a couple of boys up in the mountains, John and Britton, and we went up to northwestern Missouri and homesteaded there, started a farm. We had 5 more youngins after that. And I thought I was done with the mountains. But after a while, these wagons come across the property. Missionaries. And they was heading to Oregon. And to bring Jesus to the Flatheads and the Cayuse and the Chinook. They was missionaries. And they asked me if I had any advice for them. And I said, hold on to your hair. And I stayed on the farm, and 4 long settlers came through going to Oregon. And I figured I'd probably die there on that homestead, but in 1843, Batchika died after giving birth to our youngest, Sarah Mojave. And I just didn't have the farming in me no more. So I left the younger kids with the neighbor lady, and me and my eldest sons, John and Britton, we signed on with a party called, it was led by Dr. Townsend and Elijah Stevens, and there's quite a few members of the Murphys with them, the Townsend-Stephens-Murphy Party. And they were taking wagons to California. Now, they had tried to get wagons to California a couple of times at least, but they had to abandon them before the Sierra. It was said you could not get wagons over the Sierra. And I kind of believed that too, but I figured I'd give it a try. Because they asked me, could you do it? I said, hell yes. They paid me $500. I'd tell them they could take wagons to the moon for $500. And so we came on the Oregon Trail, crossed through South Pass, went up there to Fort Hall up in Idaho country. And then instead of going to Oregon, we turned south. And we headed toward Mary's River. That's what they call the Humboldt today. And we reached the Humboldt River where famine sits enthroned. No grass, no trees, barely a trickle in there. And we followed the Humboldt River west. And I figured maybe this river would take us to the mountains. And then the river sunk into the desert. Just vanished. And we were out there at the Humboldt Sink, and we were a mite bewildered for a time. But all of a sudden, out of the desert comes an Indian. And he's got his hands up like this, and we was raising our rifles because we didn't know his intentions. And he comes up to us and says, "Truckee, Truckee, Truckee, Truckee." And we figured that was his name. And so he approached us, and I made some signs in the dirt, and I knew a little snake, a little Shoshone, and between that and sign language and scratching in the dirt, I come to find out that he says that 2 days travel, that there's a river, heads over the mountains. There's a notch and a pass to get over them Sierra Nevada mountains. And we didn't believe him at first, so we sent a few men across the 40-mile desert, and sure enough, 4 days later they come back, and there was a river there. And we came across the 40-mile, and there was the Truckee nestled in them cottonwoods. Well, we didn't know what the name of it was, so we named it after our guide. We said, well, it's only fitting we call it the Truckee. And I come to find out that wasn't that Indian's name after all. It turns out that in Paiute, Truckee means everything's all right. In other words, I'm okay, don't shoot me. And so, folks, how's it feel along the everything's all right, I'm okay, don't shoot me river? Yeah, it's a crazy world, names like that for rivers. Well, we led them